So now that you have seen all those videos, this video is called Do Not Let Them Blur the Line. They wish to blur the line between male and female. They wish to blur the line between crazy and somebody having, some problem. Letting things get to them. Things are on their mind. They wish to blur the line between true religion and controlled religion. They wish to blur the line between drugging and treatment, between health care and actual care. They wish to blur the line between fantasy and reality. They wish to blur the line between, uncontrolled opposition and controlled opposition. And in doing so, they confuse you. Don't let them blur the lines. Righteousness and morality are well defined. As a man of honor, you must fight to uphold these principles in a world that would cast them aside in favor of childish things. How can humanity develop, if we are held back by the principles that keep one in a state of childhood, in a state of childishness, rather? How can we develop? How can we progress? We are supposed to be beyond selfishness and a bunch of cavemen, hitting each other over the heads for shiny objects and for nice land and things of this nature, the material world. We're supposed to be beyond that. We are supposed to have been beyond that for thousands of years. And they wish to take us back to a Stone Age mentality, where put your dick in whatever feels good, whatever you're attracted to, whatever you're tempted to do, go ahead and do it. There's no morality to stop you. We need to return to our roots when it comes to returning to nature, but not when it comes to, what is, what you think should be done, as far as what you're tempted to do. We shouldn't eliminate all reservations, and act on impulse and return to impulsiveness. We live in a society where cowardice rules the day. We sacrifice morality for social acceptance. How is that okay? It has become socially acceptable to abort your children. Socially acceptable to do drugs. And they've blurred the line between crazy drugs that are harmful and drugs that actually cure people. It's sad that we really have to go through the history of it, and people will say, well, that's back then. But how do we get to this point? That's as if, you're living in Nazi Germany, and they said, well, these Americans were talking about eugenics. They're like, well, they were talking about eugenics 10, 15 years ago. This is 1939. They were talking about eugenics like 20, 30 years ago. This is 1939. That has nothing to do with this. It's the same thing with psychiatry. It's like, not that long ago, we were doing horrible things to people using psychiatry and chemistry. And it brought us to this point. How did we get here? Biological psychiatry is still the main form of psychiatry that we have. You see, when it comes to social enforcement, social control mechanisms, you have to speak out against these things. Because once you make something socially normative, Oh man, you don't understand the dangers of that. Socially normative to round up the Jews, put them in camps, round up the cripples, put them in camps. And it's very funny how this works, okay? Who's that guy in the wheelchair? I think his name is Hawkins, or Hawking, okay? I have him confused with Dawkins sometimes. Okay, whatever that guy's name is, he's in a wheelchair, right? And all these atheist eugenicist dogs consider him one of the greatest minds alive. And he's a cripple. But by their eugenics standard, they would have screened him out. Oh man, let's not go into detail about the people they label mentally ill in history. They say, well, Mozart suffered from mania or whatever they say. And they bring up all these people that they consider great minds. But they weren't socially normative. Was Einstein's hair socially normative? The people that they consider, not me, but them. I mean, we look at it from their own perspective. They are disgusting. They are hypocritical. They are useless idiots. Glorified useless idiots. I mean, it is absolutely disgusting. I mean, look how eugenics in Nazi Germany, right? Look at their own standard. Whether it's the Jews doing eugenics or the whites, they're all a bunch of hypocrites. Look at it from a white, ignorant perspective, okay? A Nazi perspective. They were putting into camps the Jews, the cripples, people of mixed race. When the history has shown us that the mixed race people, the cripples and the Jews, by mainstream society's standard, are the most intellectual people. It is the inbreeds, the inbred people who are a bunch of ignorant hicks, you know, who fucking aren't very well educated. So when you go by their own standard, you know, you're looking at people who aren't just pure German or pure this, they're mixed, who are the great minds in history. Even if they're mixed white, you know, or they're mixed ancient Egyptians, by their own standard. But that's who they were putting in the camps. Let's not forget that black people are some of the tall, strongest people, and these are some of the characteristics they looked for. But that's the people they were putting in camps as well. And what for? And look at the Jews, right? Now let's look at it from their perspective. Their perspective is a little bit more logical than the Nazi perspective when it comes to eugenics, but it's all nonsense. Eugenics is nonsense. They say, well, let's consider a little bit more, because they fund these movements that talk about institutional racism. They say, well, let's consider more how these people get to this point before we judge their intelligence. Okay, from a Jewish eugenics point of view. And not forget, the Jews praised, I believe it was the Jewish Chronicle, praised Francis Galton for his work on eugenics. Okay, well, they say, well, you know, let's consider these things. So then they're turning around and doing eugenics. You know, at 1 minute they're saying, let's consider the social factors, the environmental factors. On the other hand, they're doing eugenics on these people. The same people they're saying you should consider. You see how hypocritical it is? You see how insane it is? I mean, this is not about any other philosophy other than childishness and Satanism. You know, this is selfishness. This is Luciferianism. This is inferior thought. Society is ruled by inferior thought. And they turn around and say, well, we value intellect over superstition, when they don't even understand or acknowledge the nature of intellect, which is wisdom. If intellect does not produce wisdom, it is worthless. Worthless. Just as worthless as a fucking closed manufacturing plant that doesn't produce any clothes. It's like, well, what's the fucking point? You know? You have to know how to produce it, but you're not producing it, so you're worthless. Shut it down. The same people who shut down plants and facilities because they're not productive enough do not see it in themselves that their secret society institutions have not produced wisdom. They have produced decadence. They have produced depravity. Complete hypocrites, morons, idiots, numbskulls, nitwits, dunces, imbeciles. fucking morons. Just moronic, idiot, fucking fools. And it doesn't matter how smart you think you are. Okay? If, you know, I mean, the more smart let's say you are fucking smarter than I'm giving you credit for, but you're producing stupidity, you know, then shame on you even more. I mean, we all know that it's not necessarily how smart someone is that makes them a qualified leader or qualified to make major decisions that affect all of humanity, but it is their ability to do the wise thing. So you could be the smartest fucking person that ever was born on this planet, but your works show that you need to step down. All of you secret society people need to step down. You have failed us. All the spiritual bottom feeders, every day, every moment of every day, you have failed humanity. You need to be silent. You need to shut up. You're useless fools. You know, I mean, sometimes there's a useful idiot, but you're useless fools. You're useless idiots. What use are you? You're ruining everything. You're incapable of wisdom because of your complex, which you refuse to acknowledge. It seems that you are incapable of acknowledging the faults in yourself. And then you want to tell other people, you know, what is it, the saying about the wise archer? When, you know, written in the Bible, they were thinking about you. Remove the log from your own eye before removing the twig from others. You know, they're thinking about the bigger effect this will have. If we tell everyone this, hopefully the people who actually have logs in their fucking eyes, who spend all day trying to do eugenics on people who have twigs in theirs, they might just get it. But they didn't. Because they are inferior. Let's face it. We are ruled by people who are inferior. Their works are inferior. And they want to argue that what goes on in your mind, your mind's capacity and your potential is what makes you superior. But they are inferior. Because what the mind produces, how do we know what you are unless by your works? You know, a species that produces superior works that are beneficial for all people, all of humanity, is superior to a species that has a greater brain capacity, who has a greater potential to invent, you know, wonderful things, but consistently produces inferior works. There's something to think about now. Actually, no, it's more than something to think about, something to be completely outraged. Where's your moral outrage? You should be upset about. You should be outraged. We are controlled by, you know, well, for the most part, by completely lowly dogs. You know, and they hide from my offers of debate. They hide from my martial arts challenge. They hide from any challenge, mental, spiritual, physical. They hide because they are cowards, because they are weaklings. And I promise you, they are inferior. And if you are helping them, you are inferior as well. And whatever logic you use to justify helping these dogs is inferior logic from an inferior being who consistently produces inferior works. So now that you have seen all those videos, this video is called Do Not Let Them Blur the Line. They wish to blur the line between male and female. They wish to blur the line between crazy and somebody having, you know, some problem. Letting things get to them. You know, things are actual care. They wish to blur the line between fantasy and reality. They wish to blur the line between, you know, uncontrolled opposition and controlled opposition. And in doing so, they confuse you. Don't let them blur the lines. Righteousness and morality are well defined. As a man of honor, You must fight to uphold these principles in a world that would cast them aside in favor of childish things. How can humanity develop, you know, if we are held back by the principles that keep one in a state of childhood, in a state of childishness, rather? How can we develop? How can we progress? We are supposed to be beyond selfishness and a bunch of cavemen, hitting each other over the heads for shiny objects and for nice land and things of this nature, the material world. We're supposed to be on their mind. They wish to blur the line between true religion and controlled religion. They wish to blur the line between drugging and treatment, between healthcare and